Hello there, good evening and welcome to International Dialogue. Africa, particularly West Africa, has been a hotspot of political instability in the past year. On May 24, 2021, Assimi Goita, now interim president of Mali, deposed President Doumbouya. Assimi had equally deposed Ibrahim Boubacar Keita on August 18, 2020. In April 2021, Chad's former president, Idriss Deby, was killed at the battlefront. Per the country's constitution, the Speaker of Parliament was supposed to assume office, but the military quickly made the late former son, General Mahamat Deby, leader as they dissolved the parliament. September 5, 2021, Colonel Mamady Doumbouya deposed Guinea's former president, Alpha Conde, and on January 24, 2022, the military in Burkina Faso kicked out President Roch Kabore for what they described as his inability to fight insurgents. Has the regional bloc ECOWAS and Africa as a whole failed in ensuring stability is achieved in West Africa? Does Shirley Ayorkor call for the world or the international community to help fight this insurgency and instability in West Africa laudable? Well, my name is Solomon Mensah. I'm your host, and my co-host is Solomon Annan. Guests, we have Justice Kumoji, Director of Programs at iWatch Africa. Another, Edinam Jiramedo. She is International Politics Analyst. Welcome to you all, guys.
Thank you very much.
Right. So Justice, let me start with you. What do you make of the instability in West Africa?
One word, worrying. It's extremely worrying. Because over the last 6 months, you've had a series of military takeovers in West African countries, Burkina Faso being the latest, and even an attempted coup d'etat in Guinea-Bissau recently, which was averted, although it was very bloody. It's a worrying trend. You want to situate them in different contexts, but one thing runs true. It seems democracy is failing the people of West Africa, and the military are taking advantage of the situation to step in.
And what do you think is causing this? What do you call it? Failure of democracy in West Africa.
It's not a one issue you can point a finger to, but endemic corruption. Whereby the interests of the citizens are not being put forward by the ruling class. You have a country that's impoverished, but their leaders are living large, or they are living in affluent lifestyle, which doesn't reflect the nature of reality of the citizens. So there is youth unrest. The military are always on the lookout to step in when an opportunity rises. And you're also looking at with the examples of the Burkina Faso and Mali situation, looking at insurgents on the rise, terrorist activities. And these are all part of the problems that give rise to these military interventions. One would say, okay, the regional blocs, AU, ECOWAS, they are taking the right decision by suspending these countries from the activities, condemning the coup. But when you look at Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, where you have a president whose tenure is coming to an end, appoints a successor, which in itself is a problem. And unfortunately, the successor passes on, and President Ouattara wants to go for a third term. Yet these blocks will not put him to order. But when the military takes over, we are quick to suspend them. We are quick to impose sanctions. So the root cause of this problem is democracy failing the ordinary citizens.
Edinam, if you are there and you can hear me, what do you also make of the insecurity in West Africa? Right, I think Edinam is off. We'll get back to her. Solo, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sure. So Justice has shared his thoughts on the insecurity situation in West Africa, and he pinpoints failure of democracy as the bedrock of this instability. What, in your estimation, is also accounting for this?
Yeah, I'm of the view that it's about leadership at the regional and then the continental level. Because he mentioned the issue of Côte d'Ivoire. If you look at the AU's agenda in 2013, and since 2002 coming, they've said unconstitutional removal of any government is not allowed by the African Union and all its sub-regional organizations. But we have sat down, people decided not to use the gun, but used state institutions to change the constitution, where they stay in power as how long they wish to do. And the AU has not spoken. So I think all is about leadership. It's like about friends who try to protect each other. If you are not in that bracket, when you misbehave, we'll talk about it. So I am of the view that it's about leadership. Apart from the fact that corruption, all the things he has mentioned, leadership by this organization is also another cause, because they have seen that somebody have sat down, changed the constitution. The same people who said we frown upon this didn't say anything. So if I use the gun, I've done the same thing, but I am only using the gun. You understand? So leadership must be questioned. Leadership must be called into question. That is the issue.
And Justice, you've read Ghana's Foreign Affairs Minister, Shirley Botchwey. You've read her article in the Financial Times. She is calling on the international community to help restore calm in West Africa. Do you agree with her?
Certainly, I agree with her, and I like her. Let me quote her. She said, in any case, inaction now only increases the cost of action if delayed. I agree with her. The international community, they have massive interest in Africa, not only as a market, but they have investments here too. And a stable continent obviously means a stable a place to do business. And the minister mentions the fact that Africans have helped fight wars, restore peace around the world, and we need the world or the International Commission now. So it's in the right order to call them, because you need cooperation in countering terrorism. You need access to markets, because some of the root cause of these problems are economic issues. So, I mean, if they come together to help us solve these problems, it may quell this recent terrorist activity. So, her call for the international community to come in is in the right direction. But beyond that, I think the AU and the ECOWAS are taking the necessary steps to restore calm in these regions. They've done the right thing by suspending these countries, placing sanctions on them. And, you know, a country like Burkina Faso or Mali, who is a landlocked, when you place sanctions on them, they are quickly affected. You know, the citizens will suffer, but you want democracy to prevail, and you want to use democratic means to even restore tensions in the country and not the barrel of the gun. So it's a step in the right direction.
So do you agree with Justice that the international community has a role to play in ensuring that calm is returned to West Africa?
I think we want peace on the continent. But must the first point of call be the international community? Perhaps we leave our African Union elsewhere, or the foreign minister has also written to the African Union and the Union hasn't done anything. If that has happened, then fine. But if the African Union is here and we said the African problem must be solved by the Africans, why is the AU not intervening? You are doing after. You need peace in order to do that. Agenda 2063. So if West Africa, which we see like on paper, has crafted a lot of policies that even the AU has bought into, why is it that the AU is not showing leadership? Okay, so it has to take Ghana's foreign minister to write to the international community. It baffles me, in as much as we want peace. After the peace, what do we do to sustain the peace? This one reminds me of in 2009, the African Union met at Tripoli. And their aim was to ensure that there's no conflict on the continent. And they are looking for a sustainable peace. What happened after that summit in Tripoli? Just after the summit, 2011 coming, we got the Arab uprising. So even when the international committee comes and peace comes, how do we sustain the peace? That must be done by the people of Africa. So if the AU is not really showing interest or it is showing leadership at the background, it is worrying. We have to see AU at the forefront of this fight. So I agree, we need peace. But the first point of call perhaps should be the AU. Thank you.
Okay. That's fair. And I don't know whether Edinam can hear us now. Edinam, can you hear us? Hello, Edinam. Right. So we are still having challenges getting Edinam online. Justice. So the international community, to what extent must they come in? What sort of help do we need in West Africa? Should it be supply of military equipment, deployment of military? What do we need?
Well, first of all, they are in to complement the efforts of the regional blocs, ECOWAS, for example, or EU as a whole. In dealing with this extremist or jihadist, you need cooperation in terms of sharing intelligence, sharing resources, and if this international community or Europe or Western world are able to deal with this insurgency, they have experience. They have one or two things to share with us, because it's also in their interest that their investment in Africa is protected. So, yes, military training, more investment in the continent, intelligence sharing, it will go a long way.
Okay, so then what do you make of Kwame Nkrumah's statement that the black man is capable of managing his own affairs? Justice.
It is true, we are capable of managing our own affairs. Have we been able to do so? I think there is more to be done. We must look more at ourselves and take responsibility, as Mr. Anand pointed out. But we live in a global world. So definitely we must share information. We must collaborate with our international partners so that the issue of extremism or terrorism on the continent can be tackled head on. We cannot do it all by ourselves. But in doing all this, we must find a way of becoming more independent in managing our own affairs, as predicted by.
Okay. Edinam says she can hear us. So Edinam, if you can hear us, Shirley Frimpong, Shirley Botchwey, I beg your pardon, the Ghana's Foreign Affairs Minister, this week wrote a letter to the Financial Times, an article, I must say. She is calling on the international community to help West Africa fight insurgents and also restore calm. Do you agree with her? Right. So as we wait for Edinam to connect, so you heard Justice there on the Nkrumah statement, and I saw you nodding. Nkrumah said that the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. Are we capable, now that our foreign minister, Ghana's foreign minister, is calling on the international community to come in to help West Africa? Is West Africa not strong enough? Is Nigeria not strong enough that they could have contributed military supplies and all, that we need the international community to come in?
I think that we are capable of managing our own affairs. For that one, I agree. But perhaps we have relaxed for this issue to grow beyond our reach. And therefore, we have no option than to bring in the international community, which is a laudable idea. No two ways about that. I think that this one collaborates what the Ugandan, human rights activist in Uganda who has written to the international community in the US that people are disappearing in Uganda. If you oppose the government, you have to disappear. People are brutalized in broad daylight, right? Nobody is able to do anything. Meanwhile, the African Union says that we have to protect the right of our people, and we don't want to bequeath any conflict to the next generation. And this is an agenda that is being spearheaded by the African Union. My question is, has the African state or state in Africa bought into this idea? Perhaps no. They want to carry on with their own ideology. So we are realizing that our own people are refusing to buy into the good ideas we have. And therefore, the only thing we can do is to bring in the international community that has some sort of recognition and integrity. If not, what can the African Union do? That sometimes I think about it, we criticize them, but what can the African Union do in Uganda to make sure that human rights are ensured? Right? This is a sovereign state, even though it has power to intervene when the need be. But how do you go and tell your colleagues, head of state, hey, you are doing this? What is the evidence? Even though people are disappearing. So sometimes involving the international community makes your work easier because we don't have the financial muscle to bully them. We need intelligence. They have to give us finance to do certain things. So when they come in, because of the power they will, sometimes they're able to manage situations. So it is not a bad idea at all. We can manage our affairs if we want to, and we have to. If not, who will be the first point of call? We will suffer. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me say that if you just joined us, this is International Dialogue. This is a maiden edition where we take international politics and break it down. Right. So I'm speaking with Justice Kumoji. He's a programs director at iWatch Africa. Then Edinam Dramedo, she's having difficulty connecting, so she's not been able to join the discussion. Then Solomon Annan was supposed to be my co-host, but because Edinam's feed is not responding, he is now a guest. Yeah, right. So, Justice. So now, if the help comes in, even though let me.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. But
okay.
Yes, it's okay now.
Yeah, the feed went off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was saying that if you take France, for instance, France has deployed troops to Mali, to the Sahel. And now there are agitations in the Sahel. If you go to Burkina Faso, if you go to Mali, there are protesters. Protesting France involvement in fighting the insurgents. They are accusing France of not helping them. Now that we are also calling for the international community to come in, and France is in, you are driving them away. Where do you draw the balance?
Well, it's an interesting development. France hasn't, for use of a better word, hasn't conducted itself very well. There have been so many coup d'etats among the francophone countries in Africa, whereby France is covertly or overtly involved in toppling governments that are not in conformity with Paris. You recall the first president after Togo had their independence, Olympio, was overthrown because his policies were anti-colonialist. You recall Patrice Lumumba, to just mention a few. So France involvement itself.
So you believe that France has something to do with this coup d'etat?
Yeah, from the accounts I read and what we know, when a country comes in to when a president wants to become anti-colonialist or doesn't go the way of the French, and mind you, the French countries also, they have their reserves at the French capital. where if they want aid, they have to apply. I mean, if you still keep your foreign reserves in your colonial master's country, you are promoting or developing France at the detriment of your own country. So when regimes change and these regimes don't want to go according to the old ways of dealing with France, before you realize there's a military takeover from soldiers who are specially trained in France or Paris. So there is that undertone of French complicity in this overthrow in these countries in terms of military takeover. That's why you see Mali reports coming that they want to remove themselves from the umbilical cord of France and all that. So we need cooperation with the West or the international community, but we also have to situate in the proper context. If the presence of France will not yield the results, they have to be taken out.
I see. So you support the protesters in Mali, Burkina Faso that, call on France to leave?
At the end of the day, they will not leave, but it will lead to reforms in the relationship. What they want is independence. Independence from France, from French influence and all that.
Okay. And then I see you smiling. What's your mind? What's on your mind?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
That was a wonderful input there by Justice. Yeah, Mr. Akumoji, thank you very much. Remember, who invited France? Did France come by itself? At the call of who did France come? You understand? So the issue is that if France is showing a certain interest, France choose and pick. France is a close ally of Ouattara. If it was somebody else who changed the constitution, France would have criticized them strongly. But ask yourself, what did France do when Ouattara decided to change the constitution and stay in power? So they choose and pick when to talk, when not to talk, and what they actually do on the ground. People are beginning to see that, oh, if they are in favor of this government or this administration, whatever goes on, they support. So France have to demonstrate some level of faithfulness, honesty. Okay, it must be at the request of the regional organizations or the continental organization, so that it will not be a one powerful state coming. It should be a coalition of international community where we have integrity. But when it is only France that has a particular interest coming quickly to come and do something, the people begin to suspect because they have realized that what you are doing in my country, you did something else in another person's country, and therefore you are not a trusted partner. So we need international cooperation, not just France. So France must work in collaboration with the US, United Kingdom. Russia and co have to be here because Mali is now interested in Russia more than any other country from the West. You understand? So it means that there is this suspicion that the people from the West are fighting for their own interests. My question then is Russia coming to fight for the interests of the people of Mali, or they are fighting for their own interests? Certainly they will not come just like that. They have their own ideology. Geopolitics is in play. They want to be dominant in the world of politics. So when they are coming, they will come first, very humble, but along the line, perhaps they might also do the same thing. So there must be cooperation among these international communities. That's what I think. But somebody will ask, this coup that is going on in West Africa, are they necessary intervention? If you look at the support and the crowd following the coup leaders, to a very large extent, you say that it's a necessary intervention by the people. But I am afraid, because by nature, Africans are power drunk. If these people come to power, they have good motive, but within a short time, they change. So no matter how, we can't support coup leaders to be in power for long. Processes must begin to change to democracy. And that's what must happen. You tell me one country where you have somebody came to power through coup d'etat and has been able to change the fortune of the people on the continent of Africa. Just pinpoint one. Now we'll say, okay, let's give those people who have organized this coup and have been successful the chance to stay in power. If we cannot pinpoint that one, then the processes to come back to democracy must begin and must come with serious laws, rules, and regulations that those who come to power using the democracy will also not come and steal our money. Will also not come and steal our money. Thank you very much.
Okay. That was a nice submission there. We are still finding it difficult to connect Edinam. So, okay, I think she's on now. Edinam, can you hear me? Hello, Edinam, can you hear me? Right. She's trying hard to join the discussion, but her feed is not helping matters. So we'll move on. When we get her, we'll put her on. Right. So, Justice, today ECOWAS is AU. The AU is hosting a summit, 35th summit, and looking at all these issues in West Africa and even Africa as a whole. In 2020, the AU trumpeted its what do you call it? Zero tolerance for guns, and now there seem to be more coup d'etats. The guns are sounding. AU couldn't silence its guns. That was the theme, that they are silencing the guns. The guns couldn't be silenced. They're having the 35th summit as we speak. How can we bring in AU? Should this be left the seeking for peace in West Africa? Should it be left for ECOWAS? Or you think AU proper as a continental bloc should come into?
Well, interesting question. 20 years of AU. The organization has always relied on the regional economic blocs, the RECs, ECOWAS, COMESA, the Southern Bloc, to pursue the economic agenda of integration, whilst the mother AU usually serves as an overarching moral authority, comes in when there's the need. You asked me, this 35th summit has been anchored on the need for nutrition and human capital. If you look at the continent where you have 70% of the youth, consider the majority, and we have just passed the African Continental Free Trade Area, I think the theme for the summit is well thought through. It will focus on human capital through nutrition, because we still have malnutrition in Africa, and it's not the best. If you want to build upon this human capital that's going to benefit from this African Continental Free Trade Area. But coming back to your question, democracy is being threatened by the barrel of a gun. Solomon, how many presidents do we still have in AU who have been in power for about 20 years?
Yeah.
And when you have this situation, and you have others extending their stay in power, there's no way popular uprising wouldn't happen. There's no way military takeover wouldn't be a possibility. And what has the AU done? We're always quick to condemn military takeover, suspend countries. However, those who use the pen, as Solomon Annan pointed out, to circumvent popular opinion or popular demand to prolong their stay in power, the AU has failed in that regard. But that's only peace and security. On the economic side, we are taking the right steps with the signing of the free trade area, bringing economic integration to the fore. I think with the COVID and security issues, we can do better. I wouldn't say we have failed, because it's not easy. They are doing what they can, and we hope we can ameliorate these rising security problems so that we can have peace on the continent, which is very crucial for the development we want.
Okay. Solomon, do you think justice is, treating ECOWAS and AU, pampering? Do you think he's pampering AU per his submission.
He's being very fair. Let me be honest. You see, I was nodding and I was smiling. Yeah, we can be very hard on the AU, but the question is, if you look at the 2016 LUSAKA roadmap to silencing the gun in Africa, the AU itself doesn't play any specific role. We have the AU Commission, which is in charge of silencing the gun, right? But we have the regional organization, regional bodies, who have been given specific tasks. Okay, we have the standby forces who have been given specific tasks to carry out within their region. So ECOWAS must do certain things. The South African must also do certain. Every region must do certain to ensure that the guns are silenced. So in fact, the AU is just a body constituting every state in Africa. But I've seen that the biggest challenge for the AU, perhaps with the AU itself hasn't recognized yet or haven't identified yet, is that some of the policies are not going down in the individual state. Okay,
Okay, we've lost Anand's feed. Okay. Right. Right. So let me.
You have silencing the gun.
Right. Let me bring in Justice as Solomon works on.
Finish.
Justice Solomon is having. Yeah. We're having a problem connecting, getting good feed from Solomon. So, AU, talking about the 35th anniversary, you've said that they are doing their best and all. Going forward, how should they, AU as a body, how should they engage heads of state on the continent? I mean, in ensuring that peace prevails and coup d'etat are not, I mean, don't become contagious, as President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, said.
Thank you, Solomon. I think the problem has to do with enforcement of the rules of engagement, the protocols that has been put in place to prevent or to promote zero tolerance for guns has to be enforced. But here we are. We don't have the strong, backbone to enforce this. Where Solomon said, sometimes they protect their friends who are trying to prolong their stay in power. They are not being hard on countries that are, destroying democracy through this power-drunk nature of the presidents or leaders. If we focus on implementation, focus on strict enforcement of the rules, strong sanctions, and to make this appetite to prolong your stay or military to coerce a bit unenticing. And we also have to strengthen our security. And by that, we have to cooperate with the powers that be to ensure that the rising threat of jihadist movements in Africa, which emanated from the fallout from Libya through to the Sahel region. You have Sudan, Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso. They are remnants of what happened in Libya. So we have to strengthen our security. We have to improve even our COVID vaccination so that we can stem the tide, because there is still the COVID threat. I think people are forgetting that we are still in COVID. And the test really comes, having signed the African Continental Free Trade. Implementation becomes the real challenge. If we're able to implement it well, we'll realize its benefits. So I wanted to even add this point that if you realize what happened in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and the role ECOWAS played in ensuring that peace was restored to those regions, these are all some of the things that the AU has done in the right direction in terms of peace and security in the region. But of course, they can do more. So this year, with the theme I've already mentioned, anchored on the fact that good nutrition and human capital, if we're able to take care of that, I think we'll be in the right direction to move the continent forward. Thank you.
Okay. So Solomon is back. Let's see if he can hear us now. Solomon, can you hear me now?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You were on your submission when your internet jammed.
Yeah, sorry for that technical hitches over there. I was saying, when you look at the LUSAKA roadmap, if you look at the LUSAKA roadmap to silencing the guns in Africa, you see there are clear areas that everybody must play a role. The AU is seen as a supervisory body, right? But the various regional bodies are supposed to do certain things. But research has also shown that most of these continental policies don't go down well with the states. Meanwhile, the EU is made up of all states in Africa, every state in Africa. Okay, why is it that the program for the AU, which must be implemented by individual states, doesn't come back to the people within, like, let's say, Ghana? How many people have heard of silencing the guns? In Togo, how many people have heard of silencing the guns? What are they doing? What is the Togolese government doing? What is the government of Ghana doing to ensure that the guns are silenced over here? These are very telling questions. Meanwhile, nobody says anything. So you see that in the end, it goes back to the AU. And perhaps if I would suggest something, the AU must have a strong media a strong one, of course, that would champion the cause of the AU within the continent. We are here, we see Al Jazeera, we follow Al Jazeera.
We lost you briefly. You were suggesting that the AU should have its own media.
A strong one, of course. You see, that will champion the good policies that the AU is bringing out. A lot of people in Africa who don't know what is going on. How many people are on social media who have seen silencing the gun? Do we understand? We just saw it. What is the meaning of silencing the gun? The AU brought a month that month is an amnesty month. Like, everybody must bring the gun. If you owe a gun, you bring it. Nobody will accuse you. Nobody will arrest you and prosecute you. But the state says, everybody bring your gun, the gun that you which is illegal. So various states are supposed to carry out this policy. How many states in Africa did? Okay, so there are good policies, but the individual state must be involved. Perhaps for our parochial interests, we are refusing to carry out the policy we have.
Right, so it's off.
We have to work on that. If not,
okay, you are on now. You are back on.
Yeah, so we have to work on that. I think my network is disturbing somehow.
But you are making an interesting point there. I know the AU, the ECOWAS, and all, they have media departments, and you're suggesting that they should have their own media. Is that the case?
Yes, I'm saying the AU must have a strong, not a propaganda media outlet, but they used to have a proper media outlet. We are not talking about propaganda.
Propaganda is not in itself bad. You get it?
I know. But you see, sometimes because we think that we have a lot of foreign media saying a lot of things, we want to also do something to just counter what they are saying. But we should have media houses that champion the cause of Africa, that champion what we want to do as Africans. Why was it that the AU declared in 2013 that we want to silence the gun, but the steps we are going to silence the gun only came to fruition in 2016? From 2013 to 2016, how many years? What was happening? But if you have a media house which have the liberty to do research, to follow, the AU, what are you doing? Why haven't you done anything about silencing the gun? You waited for over 3 years before you said we have LUSAKA roadmap in 2016. So from just 4 years, conflict that somehow has happened for over 25 years, 30 years. You want to silence the gun within 4 years? Is it possible? No. So the EU must have its media outlet that will champion the cause of Africa. Let people know what you are doing. Let people know the goodwill you have, and they should begin to trust in you. Today, you and I, when we have a news from Al Jazeera, we will trust it because we follow those media houses for a very long time, and they are credible. Is that not so? So if they use that, it is good. It's good.
Justice, on that point, would you suggest that instead of the regional blocks or the continental bloc, the ECOWAS, the SADC, the AU, or the AU, let's say the AU having its own media, wouldn't it be better if our media houses in Africa restructure themselves to the level of the Al Jazeera, the BBC, the CNN, and the others, instead of the regional blocks or the continental bloc, setting up a media house?
That is the best alternative. But ask yourself, when you want to get first-hand information, you go to Al Jazeera, you go to RFI, you go to BBC. What are we doing? It looks like our media houses are also not interested in that area. You and I are interested. What can we do? Perhaps we have begun something. But if nobody is doing, then you must sit down to see that, why did I say I want to silence the gun? Why did I say I want to have sustainable peace in Africa, but nothing is happening? A German organization made a research to say that most of the policies by the AU don't go down well with the states. Meanwhile, when they go to those places, our presidents are there. Ghana's president is there. Whoever is in power is there. Togo is there. Cote d'Ivoire is there. Why is it that the message doesn't come back to the people you are representing? So if you see this is the challenge, then you have to develop means by which you make sure that what our own people have signed on to, the people within the continent have access to it. So if our media houses do it, it's the best. But if they don't do it, the EU must do something.
I see. Justice, you were about contributing on this.
Yes, we must understand that the AU is a group of countries coming together. You know, when we do well as a country, the AU does well. So the policy of zero guns, zero toleration for guns, who champions that agenda? The AU relies on member states to ensure that the information gets to citizens. So if we haven't been able to promote the zero gun policy, I think we must take the blame as individual countries or member states instead of the mother organization. So you ask yourself, what budget allocation were made by individual countries towards promoting zero gun policy?
Okay. Right. So let's move on to our final topic. Israel, for 19 good years, it was until last year that they were accepted as an observer in the AU. This has had a lot of issues. South Africa, Algeria, and some others have been protesting against this observer status given Israel because they say Israel is occupying Palestine. And so even today as we speak, the AU was supposed to vote on the issue whether to fully accept Israel's status as an observer or not. Justice, is the tension over this issue, off? Has it died off? Or you think it's still boiling?
Thank you, Solomon. First of all, we have to go back a little bit. This observer status granted Israel, it's not the first time. They used to have this status when the organization wasn't AU, the previous organization, Organization of African Unity. It was until 2002, when it was transformed to AU, that they lost the observership status. So their quest for this status is not a new one. They just want to regain their old status. But then you ask yourself, why do they need this status in a way? Two reasons: to deepen their penetration in Africa, and also to ensure that Africans who constitute a significant bloc at the United Nations vote favorably towards Israel's interest. And mind you, South Africa and co are complaining about this status. But Israel has 46 embassies in Africa, or dealing with 46 countries out of the 55 African countries who constitute the AU. So there's already bilateral relations between these countries. And also because of the position, the geopolitics in the Middle East, Israel tries to trade with countries beyond the periphery of the Arab states, because there's still a little bit antagonism there. So Israel wants to deepen relations with Africa by trading expertise in agriculture, high tech, military cooperation, in terms of countering terrorism. So personally, I think this observer status will be granted. Yes, South Africa will have their complaints, but ultimately, majority of African countries support Israel or have bilateral relations with Israel. And mind you, the Palestinians have been granted that status in 2013. So if you grant Palestinians observership status in 2013, will you not do the same for Israel?
Well, but this case, the blame is on Israel that you are occupying Palestine.
Yes, that issue is there and will always be there. But Africa, what do we want? We have needs, and Israel has solutions. We can situate the issues in different contexts, where we condemn the occupation of Palestinian territories, but at the same time, we cooperate to counter terrorism. We cooperate in terms of a great technology transfer and what have you. We don't have to, we say in Ghana, take somebody's fight to be yours. We condemn what is condemnable, and we engage with what we have to engage, because even with the US, we don't like everything they do, but we still engage with them. So, in my opinion, the observership status will remain, and we move forward.
I have another question for you, Justice, but let me go to Solomon. But I see him nodding. After that, I'll come back and bombard you with my question on your submission now. Yeah, so I saw you nodding. What do you have to say?
See, our earlier discussion ties into this one. We said we need international cooperation. We are faced with a lot of challenges, especially issues of security. And I think that when we are talking about security in the world now, Israel is one of the powerhouse. Okay. And now they are knocking at your door. They're giving the opportunity to come and join you. I want to observe. Perhaps you need him more than he needs you. He needs you for sure, but he wants to come. So the likelihood that we'll give them that audience is very high, so that somebody will say, "Hang go, hang come," like we say in our local parlance. So when they are granted the opportunity, when we also need something to help us to fight the insurgents in Africa, the terrorism, radicalism, do you think they will reject? No. So this is not the first time, as he mentioned, this is not the first time a foreign country wants to be an observer to any group in Africa. Now, Japan was there. Other Asia countries came to observe. You see, sometimes will Africa become the next mediator to solve the Palestinian problem? Perhaps we give them the opportunity and see what we can do. The US have taken the opportunity, maybe they have not been able to do so. Russia, other countries, powerhouses, but they were not able to do. If we give them the opportunity to become observer, do we have that power to broker some peace between Israel and Palestine? So perhaps the likelihood that to be granted is very high.
Okay, just as you mentioned that we shouldn't take someone's fight to be our fight, as we say in the local parlance, and all. But when you also talk about bilateral relations, Justice, you together, I mean, the three of us, we are all friends, and so if you are in trouble, I must come your aid. I must see to it that your problem is solved. And now we have many African states think that Palestine too must have that relations with them. And so if Israel is pestering Palestine, then they must ensure, as South Africa, Algeria are doing, that they push Israel for now out of the AU observer status, so that Israel goes to settle with Palestine before it comes back to be accepted. Don't you agree?
It depends on how you look at it. Do I have a personal opinion on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? I will choose to step aside. But what I can say is, it's obvious Israel thinks it's doing the right thing. Palestinians also have their right to settle. How do they manage that? I think the two-state solution which was proposed hasn't been implemented. But beyond that, as Africa, even when you take a look at the Cold War, the USSR and NATO were antagonistic towards each other. But Ghana under Nkrumah wanted to be in the middle so that we can trade with both countries. It doesn't always end up well, but we always try to mind our own business. We have solidarity with countries that has, or people who are in oppression, having come out of colonialism ourselves. We are not happy with what's happening with the Palestinians, the Gaza Strip, and all what have you. But that does not mean that we boycott relations with Israel. So it all comes back to the bilateral relations. Everybody is pursuing their national interest, and I'm not sure our national interest as Ghana is to pursue Palestinian interest. So yes, we have solidarity with them. We sympathize with them. We issue statements when we feel the oppression is too much. But I don't think we'll go a step further by providing security or militia on the ground to help Palestinians fight Israel. Can we do that? Will we do that? We won't. So we focus on the bilateral relations between these two countries or these two nations, because they have something we need. We also have something they need. Israel wants a market in Africa. We also want expertise. We want technical support. We want high tech in agric, in military cooperation. So that's what we focus on until an amicable solution is found between these two nations. I think Africa, we have to be careful how we manage this. But then you understand how it is in Africa. You have countries south of the Sahara who are in support of Israel, who have, except a few, and usually those are the north against Israel. So if tomorrow it goes to a vote about this observative status, definitely Israel will prevail. But then Africa as a bloc is also pursuing its interest. Same way Israel and Palestinians are also pursuing their interest. So this matter, I think, will linger on for a while.
Okay. So let me come to you. The Chagos archipelago that Mauritius lays claim to, Mauritius says is theirs, but UK occupies the Chagos. Now the question is, UK is also given an observer status at the AU. Why are South Africa, Algeria, and others not questioning UK that you are also, in a way, pestering Mauritius, but you've been given observer status? But in the case of Israel, it's like many are interested in the bashing Fakat, the AU commissioner, for accepting them.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the question is, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So the question is, do you have criteria, a standard you have to meet as a?
Okay. Okay.
Is it clear?
Back. Yeah, you're back
I'm
now.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, do you have criteria that you have to meet as a state when you want to come as an observer to join the African Union? If these criteria are there, are spelled out by the AU, and then we think Israel does not meet, or Israel is doing something that does not meet that criteria, and then the UK is also doing the same, then both of them don't have the right to join. But if there's no criteria, and we say because of our ideological sentiment, we say, oh, after you, we can't grant you the observer status. But after you, because you are a friend to us, we can grant you. We are not being fair. So at the continental level, we have to show that level of fairness. They say that these are our criteria. If you don't meet the criteria. If you are qualified to be there and you want to be an observer, and we think we can give you that status, why not? So perhaps that's what we have to look at. Maybe you have not gone there, but what I'm seeing is that because of some ideological sentiments and feelings, that is why we are against Israel's quest to become an observer. If not, I don't think Israel should be denying that status, right? He said he has his personal view about the issue of Israel and Palestine. Perhaps there are so many things going into that. That's why the opposition is coming. I think going forward, if the AU doesn't have any criteria, the AU must get that criteria. So if Solo doesn't meet that criteria and Justice meet that criteria, Justice is given the observer status. If both of us has fallen foul, it means both of us don't have that opportunity. Okay, so maybe we are choosing and picking because of ideological differences here. That's what I think.
Just as your last comments, then wrap up the show.
I think opposition to Israel's quest for observership status, they have a point. But at the end of the day, the General Assembly will decide. And mind you, like I said, Israel has relations with 46 African countries out of the 55. And some may be opposed to this status being granted to them, but it doesn't stop them from having bilateral relations with Israel. So it comes back to Solomon's point that once you meet the criteria, you should be given the observative status. If the AU denies Israel this status, what signal does it send to the international community? It doesn't mean that we have picked a side between the conflict between the Palestine and the Israel. So my closing remarks is that we'll still deal with them. Let's look at our interest, the broader interest of the AU. Will Israel's coming on board help us achieve our goals? If yes, then let's grant them the status. If no, then we take
regardless of how tormented Palestine will be.
Palestine has been given an observer status by the AU.
Okay. All right. So you have your closing remarks too.
Yeah. So quickly, I would say that Africa must rise to the occasion. This is our time. Okay, we can't wait for somebody coming all the time. Collaboration is needed. Collective security is needed. Everything is needed. But we must do our homework. If not, we'll come and solve one problem. We'll come and solve half of the problem. one of the things that AU say you want to do is to eliminate all the root cause of conflict in Africa. How do we do that? Is it just on paper, another sloganeering that will finish? We have to make sure that AU have observer status in almost every country. Where is the early warning sign that AU want to pick? These things must work. If not on paper, the AU is doing very well. What happened in Nigeria? Are you saying there was no signal that there will be coup in Burkina Faso? Was there not any signal in Guinea? Was there not signal in Mali? The early warning sign must work. The AU must equip itself. And that is about finances. We must rise to the occasion. If not, we'll come and fight this thing and we'll stop coup. In the next 10 years, you and I will meet as an international analyst, expert to come and talk about coup if you don't take it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making this show a success. This has been a debut of International Dialogue. My name is Solomon Mensah. Solomon Annan was supposed to be my co-host, but one of our guests, Edinam Jamedo, couldn't join because of her connectivity issues. And so Justice Kumoji, who is with the iWatch Africa, became our sole guest for tonight. Right, so if you are new here, kindly do subscribe to the channel so that you get notified of our future uploads. My name, once again, is Solomon Mensah. Thank you so much for joining. Guys, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay. So we meet next week. All right, bye-bye.